Hello and welcome to the third part of the 2019 ITN webinar. My name is Geraldine Canny. I'm head of the IMSCO and National Contact Point for MSCA. I'm based at the IUA and our office is operated in joint partnership with the Irish Research Council, and we also receive funding from Science Foundation Ireland. Here in this section I will talk about how to address impact. As a reminder, this webinar is one of a suite of supports that our office has offered to Irish applicants for this call. Further information can be found at these links, and coordinators should contact us for proposal reviews via their research officers between mid-November and December 21st of this year. This slide shows the subheadings that must be used for the impact section. The overall strategy for ITN is built on a number of established EU policies shown in this slide. It is very important to be aware of these policies when writing an ITN application. We have therefore inserted policy boxes containing information on the relevant policies in the various sections of the handbook. These range from the Charter and Code to the principles of innovative doctoral training. In writing this section, do consider the following questions. Why does Europe need a cohort of researchers trained up in this particular research area? Where could these researchers end up working? And here it is important to think outside and beyond the academic sector. How can the ITN programme be designed to ensure that the researchers are employable in these areas? And how will this ITN contribute to structuring research and doctoral training in Europe in a sustainable manner? For example, by the spreading of best practice, etc. Such matters should be kept in mind when writing your proposal. ITNs are expected to have an impact at three levels: at the researcher, at the organisation, and at the system level. I will go through these briefly individually. At a researcher level, the ITN should bring about an increased set of skills, both research-related and transferable ones, leading to improved employability and career prospects, both in and outside academia. It should lead to an increase in higher impact R&I output and more knowledge and ideas converted into products and services. And the ITN should lead to a contribution to the knowledge-based economy and society. At the organisation level, that is, across consortium members and in those institutions, the ITN should bring about enhanced cooperation and better transfer of knowledge between sectors and disciplines, an improvement in the quality of training programs and supervision arrangements, the creation of new networks and enhanced quality of existing ones, boosting R&I capacity among beneficiaries and participating organisations, and increasing internationalisation of participating organisations. Thirdly, at the system level, that is, the research system in Europe, such impacts include an increase in international, interdisciplinary and intersectoral mobility of researchers in Europe, more structured and innovative doctoral training, enhanced implementation of the Charter and Code and the EU principles for innovative doctoral training, stronger links between the ERA and the EHEA, notably through supporting the knowledge triangle between research, innovation and education, improvement in the working and employment conditions for doctoral candidates in Europe, increased societal and economic relevance of European higher education, strengthening Europe's human capital base in R&I with a new generation of more entrepreneurial and highly skilled early career researchers, increasing Europe's attractiveness as a leading research destination accompanied by a rise in the numbers of talented researchers attracted to and retained from abroad, and finally, a better quality of research and innovation contributing to Europe's competitiveness and growth. This slide shows cross-cutting issues which are applicable to all H2020 applications. These should be incorporated into your proposal as this is important to be competitive. For example, gender should be woven into various sections, including the research section, how it is taken into account for carrying out the research, as well as how the recruited ESRs should reflect a gender balance. And gender balance should also be taken into account in management structure and supervision, as well as in dissemination and communication activities where applicable. Open science is very important with respect to open access research publications and DMPs, if not opting out of the ORD pilot. Communication and dissemination, again, which should not be confused with one another, as dissemination is towards potential users, whereas communication is about activities including the media and the public to various audiences and is done throughout the project. RRI is also very important, as it is vital to adhere to ethical rules in performing the research and ensure that it is performed with integrity, avoiding fabrication, falsification, plagiarism, etc. Given that a substantial proportion of the H2020 budget will address climate action and sustainable development, respectively, these should be taken into account when writing the proposal, if applicable. Now for section 2.1, the overall aim here is to show a detailed understanding of the profile of the ESR graduates, how they will be employable, where and why. Present a credible analysis of how the elements of the programme will make the ESRs employable. Describe the potential employment sectors that they might end up working in. Do again consider both academic and non-academic career opportunities. Here refer to the different types of research training they will obtain, the transferable skills training, and the communication and dissemination activities. In addition, it is important to outline how the secondments and other opportunities for exposure to other organisations and the networking involved will make them more employable. Do not repeat how the skills will be delivered, instead focus here on the impact of the skills on the ESR's employability. Again, emphasise the triple I aspects of the programme: international, intersectoral and interdisciplinary, adhering to the EU principles for innovative doctoral training. Make a strong link between your programme's elements and EU policies about research careers and employability. Again, see our handbook for further details. Now for section 2.2. Here, the contribution to structuring early stage doctoral training must be detailed, taking into account the appropriate policy. For example, the annex of the Erasmus Mundus Handbook of Excellence in Doctoral Training is quite important, and this details several areas such as less silos, more collaboration. An agreed set of rules for programme elements has been set out in the Salzburg II principles and the PIDT that I previously mentioned. These should be kept in mind when writing this section. Explain how your programme adheres to these rules and explain how your ITN will incorporate each of the underlying principles. Also detail how the programme will help the further development of European collaborative research training programmes and describe how the programme will be continued after the actual ITN is over. This is very important as the sustainability is frequently critiqued by evaluators. All relevant links and information about the policies again is given in the handbook. Now to the contribution of the non-academic sector here. It is important to demonstrate how the exposure of all of the ESR fellows to the non-academic sector is meaningful. That is, it is of sufficient duration and content to ensure, firstly, the employability of the trained fellow in the non-academic sector upon graduation, and B, excellence and impact of the research training. Also explain how the contribution of the non-academic sector participants to this particular ITN programme is essential to improving intersectoral collaboration in research training in this research area. Continuing on here, and of relevance to EJD, further information also about EIDs is contained in the handbook. With respect to EJD in particular, there is a key policy goal in this area to overcome differences or fragmentation in doctoral training across Europe. It is important to show that your EJD will bring a degree of consistency. Refer to the Erasmus Mundus document I previously mentioned. The harmonisation of institutional processes involved in developing joint degrees will help bring consistency to the doctoral experience across Europe, and this is an important message to get across. Explain how your EJD will help with developing the consistency of the doctoral experience. Here, such aspects should be detailed, such as the unified selection, recruitment, monitoring, awarding processes, etc. It is also key to explain how you will continue the joint degree process in the consortium after the end of this particular EJD. We also suggest you address strengthening EU innovation capacity here, explain how the research programme will contribute to Europe's economy and our society. What type of innovation could your programme and fellows deliver? For example, outputs such as new policies, new products, and who will use them? It is important to link to EU researcher policy goals, Horizon H 2020 pillars, research roadmaps, and EU sectoral policies, which again are detailed in the handbook. If your programme builds on an existing ITN, cost action or other funded project, clearly explain how it does so, making it very clear that you are proposing to go beyond the work already funded by those projects. Could your research contribute to the development of a new European standard, etc.? If so, describe this briefly here and explain the details in section 2.3 under exploitation. Again, recall that ideally 35% of the H2020 budget will be spent on climate action and 60% on sustainable development areas. If there is a link here, do make it. Now for dissemination and exploitation. Here it is important to put forward your dissemination strategy. The target audience involved is, of course, other researchers, potential users in the wider research and innovation community. Describe how you will ensure that this audience learns about the research activities and what the potential impact is of disseminating to them should also be clearly outlined. Secondly, regarding IP rights and exploitation, how are the research results useful to business? You should outline plans to protect and exploit any IP commercial potential arising from the programme, and also describe what the potential impact of exploiting commercial IP, if applicable, is. Secondly, how are the research results useful to the wider society? If applicable, how will you ensure that the relevant societal actors such as patients, citizens, community, other groups, voluntary sector, etc. will benefit from your project? And what is the potential impact of societal exploitation of the results? I will now go into more detail in how to address this in the following slides. Now for dissemination of the research results, here we outline going forward 3 steps in order to help you structure and write this section. Firstly, identify target audiences, which can include academic researchers, clinical researchers, MNCs, SMEs, CSOs, NGOs, national archives, charities, etc. Describe dissemination methods or deliverables, which can include conferences, proceedings, monographs, technical reports, standards, policy briefs, etc. And thirdly, describe the impact of the dissemination. Remember, this is the impact section, how this will increase visibility, building partnerships, exploitation opportunities, etc. So for dissemination, step 1 here is where you should identify target audiences. That is, stakeholders who will use the results to be generated. They will be involved in the exploitation. Examples of target audiences are shown in this table. Do be specific. What kind of organisations in this sector are interested in your results? They can be private sector, academic, NGO, policy or advocacy groups, charitable foundations, etc. Give examples of specific NGOs or other entities that will use the knowledge and other results coming from your project, as well as the hospital sector, education, government and others involved in the public sector. The members of the consortium should help with identifying target audiences, and this should be representative of all results as a whole involved. Here, you were talking about experts. Do not mix them up with the general public, as this is pertinent to communication and not dissemination. To dissemination of the research results. The methods to be used include, of course, conferences, events, workshops and lectures. Give examples for each target audience mentioned in step 1. How often will each ESR carry out one of these methods? Their involvement must be clear. Secondly, peer-reviewed journals. Give examples of high-impact journals, target journals in your research area, and describe how many articles ESRs will produce and submit. Open access repository in line with open science, one of the cross-cutting themes. You must ensure peer-reviewed scientific publications resulting from this funding will be on open access repositories free of charge. See page 22 of the ITN guide for applicants. Another example of dissemination methods include industry magazines and journals. European Commission dissemination tools is yet another. For example, EU Results magazine on the Cordis portal. Do refer to page 11 of the Communicating EU Research and Innovation brochure. Relevant links are also included in our handbook. Now for dissemination, describe the impact of your dissemination methods, drawing attention to funding sources to highlight the need for and ultimate benefits of this research, contribution to the Innovation Union, enhancing the visibility of the various ESRs for potential employment, and attracting the interest of potential partners or future projects, as well as encouraging talented students and scientists to join the beneficiaries involved. It's also important to note where you are enhancing the reputation of the participating organisations and influencing policy on a topic that the research relates to. Now for the exploitation of results and intellectual property. Step 1. Firstly, explain the type of research results that will come out of this project. For example, data, products, prototypes, procedures, methods, standards, etc. Secondly, explain how you will protect the results if applicable. For example, patents, copyright, trade secrets, etc. How have you decided to allocate IP in your consortium? This should be discussed upfront with respect to foreground and background IP, and agreement should be reached in the writing of the proposal. I refer you to the MSCA IP management document, as well as the IPR help desk, which provides regular training webinars. Do note that IPR protection and dissemination are not and should not be mutually exclusive. Results can be made publicly available after the appropriate IP protection has taken place. So protection precedes dissemination in that instance. Liaise with the Research Office and Technology Transfer Office of your institution to learn about the appropriate procedures. And thirdly, describe how you will exploit the results, as detailed on the following slide. Now for exploitation methods, explain the ways in which the IP protected results will be exploited. And examples of exploitation are shown here in the table and can include further research activities outside the project, the commercialization of a product, process or service, spin-off, student entrepreneurship, etc., the licensing or further development in industry, standardization activities, societal exploitation and impact on policy and practice. Policymakers and NGOs would exploit results in this manner. Results could also encourage social innovation. A data management plan is another exploitation example and constitutes a deliverable. This with the aim of improving and maximising access to and reuse of research data in Horizon 2020 projects, which I will detail in a following slide. Do make clear what is the impact of exploitation in this way that you've chosen or ways that have been outlined. How will exploitation be managed in the ITN? Here, detailed support given by the Technology Transfer Office or similar organisation within your organisation or HEI or company. The Open Research Data Pilot aims to improve and maximise access to and reuse of research data generated by H2020 projects. It focuses on encouraging a sound data management plan, or DMP. A DMP describes the data management life cycle so that the research data is findable, accessible, interoperable and reusable, the so-called FAIR principles. In section 2.3, it is encouraged to include details about how the project will implement good research data management. A DMP is a deliverable and can evolve over the lifetime of the project. Please note that the ORD pilot is not mandatory and can be opted out of. Now for communication and public engagement. In designing your communication strategy, firstly, do outline your target audience. This is the general public, schools, students at various levels, patients, other groups, etc. Describe how you will ensure that this audience learns about the research activities and what is the potential impact of disseminating to them. I'll now go through this in further detail in the following slides. Communication. Here describe the audience, message and channel as shown in this slide. The audience is mass media, targeting the general population. So the general population is your audience, and describe the activities the consortium will perform to ensure media coverage, etc. Ensure that the ESRs are actively involved here. Their role and how they're doing this over time should be clearly shown. For example, they could have a Twitter account set up at the beginning of their project, etc. The message involved could be, for example, how publicly funded research adds value to society and economy, and this is very important to show to the taxpayer who largely funds the research. Finally, the channel chosen depends on what is being communicated, but various means may be chosen, such as the TV, newspaper articles, blogs, project website, social media, as I just mentioned, etc. Explain who in the institution will help you with seeking media coverage, for example, a communications officer or officer. It is very important to describe the potential impact of getting this type of media coverage for the project. For public engagement, a similar approach should be taken in writing this section. Again, outline the audience, message and channel. This needs to take place across the whole consortium and in all countries involved, not just in Ireland. Talk to experts at each institution involved. See what national activities can be joined over the activities, for example, Pint of Science, MSCA Researchers' Night, SFI Discover, etc. What is the potential impact of engaging the public in the activities of the ITN? For these two sections, it is very important to include quantifiable targets here for measuring the effectiveness of dissemination, exploitation, communication and public engagement activities. Here, you should also link to other sections of the proposal in order to ensure a coherent whole, and that this is clear to the evaluator in linking different sections to the other, which makes for easier reading for them. For example, other sections linked are 1.2, quality and innovative aspects of the training programme. How will the ESRs receive skills in dissemination, communication, exploitation and IP by doing structured training, online training, etc. 3.1 in the description of the work packages. A dedicated work package should be had for communication, dissemination and exploitation. Also in 3.2, appropriate management structures and procedures. It is important that it is clear who will manage activities for 2.3 and 2.4. We have now reached the end of the third part of the 2019 ITN webinar. I hope this information has been useful to you. Again, Irish applicants may address queries to the Marie Curie email address and we will endeavour to respond as soon as possible. Good luck with the writing.